anyone can start an assembly. You just talk to your friends, put out a call on Facebook or Twitter, or just talk to people in person and have a meeting together. And it can be in a public space like a park or where we are in 60 Wall, which is a Deutsche Bank public-private partnership, or it can be in a church, it can be in a union hall, it can be wherever it's appropriate. Anyone can do an assembly. So you just call it, you assemble, and then you have a facilitator, stack taker, timekeeper. Sometimes you want like a vibes watcher, and they just keep track of like the feeling of the group, the general feeling of the group, and then you proceed and you use the consensus process to develop emerging ideas, and also to identify diverging opinions. It's not as if everyone has to always come to a unified position. You can allow for divergent views, and yeah, I mean that's basic. And then you would go through the formal consensus process, at the point that it's appropriate. If you have a proposal that seems to be coming from the group, and then you take the proposal through clarifying questions, concerns, stand-asides. Stand-asides are serious concerns, and you get to state like why you object to what's being said, but you're not preventing the group from moving forward if you stand aside. And then a block would be if you were to prevent the group from moving forward. That's what a block does. And so you would leave the group. If you blocked something, that's like if you block something, it's serious enough that it violates like the core principles, the foundations of like what you believe the group to be about. And so blocks are supposed to be very rare, but they're also used as like strategic ploys, and there are weaknesses in having too many blocks. And so, yeah, but that's how. So if you don't have any blocks, then you reach consensus, and if you see people twinkling, that's a temperature check. It's actually not. It's not consensus, even though people like to twinkle when you get consensus. It's a temperature check to get a reading of the group. If people are feeling good or not so good or like in between, that's how you get a sense of like whether or not to move forward. But it's just a tool like anything else. So you can come to consensus, without using hand signals. But they're just helpful, especially in large groups, so that you can communicate to a lot of people at one time.
You said like everybody gets a chance to talk. Is there a process for that is guaranteed?
Yeah, so you have a stack taker, and in Occupy Wall Street we use progressive stack, and progressive stack is just a consideration of systematically, traditionally marginalized groups. So, we take into consideration, like when doing stack, whether or not someone is of a particular race, ethnicity, gender, ability, etc. So the idea is that by encouraging people to step up who don't normally step up, then they'll be more empowered and able to take on roles, and that the balance of power will be more equal. And it's a check on power and a way to take into account oppression, which of course we internalize and replicate in our own movements. And so we need ways to check that.
What's a stack?
Oh, a stack is just a list of people that are going to speak. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a stack keeper who does that, but then there's also the facilitator,
right.
and the facilitator does exactly what? What's the outline of that?
So the role of the facilitator is to guide the group through their own process. So if the group makes certain agreements about how they're going to operate with one another, how they're going to relate to one another, if they're going to respect each other, not cut each other off, honor each other's voices, that sort of thing, like the facilitator reminds the group of that. You know, the facilitator synthesizes material. So if they hear that that certain similarities are coming up, that people are coming up with the same ideas, or you know, that there might be collaboration or compromise, then they articulate that, they synthesize it, and bring it back to the group, so that the group knows like sort of where they are in the conversation. The same if they're diverging views, articulating those, and also just making sure that the group knows that the agenda that they set out to achieve is going however it's going, badly, if it's going well, and just how much time they have left, how they're progressing throughout the course of their time together, and yeah, the facilitator is in a way, I don't know. I mean, they're a guide. I think the best way to describe it is that a facilitator is a guide.
How long do they usually last, these assemblies?
Well, assemblies can go for a while because democracy takes time. So, I mean, a couple of hours is generally they can go from an hour to 5 hours. Hopefully not 5 hours because no one likes to stay that long. So.
What kind of process does Occupy Sandy use now?
So Occupy Sandy doesn't have any decision-making process at the moment. Occupy Sandy has community meetings, but those meetings don't decide anything. They just have report backs about the work that people are doing, and then the decisions that are made on the ground in different locations, and then also by what I observe to be a top-down group of people that so there are managers, and then there are people working on the ground. I think that's probably the best way to characterize it. I mean, the managers, the sort of professional organizers who have certain skill sets and connections to resources, are developing ways to institutionalize their positions, and acting as intermediaries between the state, corporations, and people on the ground. So they're acting in much the same way that an NGO would act. And some people are, particularly the people that are in these positions, have no problem forming NGOs. It's kind of sad to see because that's completely contrary to what Occupy sought out to achieve. But that's what's happening with Occupy Sandy. And there are still people, doing good work on the ground who, are doing community organizing and really trying to, encourage self-determination and direct democracy in the various sites, who really believe in the people's recovery. But those people are not as well resourced or connected. And so it's a bit of an uphill battle. And a lot of people have left Occupy Sandy. It's unfortunate because I still think there's a lot of potential in doing relief and rebuilding work. So I don't know. So I hope that people remember why they came here.